Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome everyone here. This is our June the 12th, 2018 council meeting. Again, you know that we are televised, we're webcast. And if anyone in attendance has a cell phone with them, if you can just check to see if it's silenced, that would assist us. Thank you very much. Judy Ann McCauley has just arrived, so we do indeed have a volunteer that is assisting with this broadcast this afternoon. There is one change in the agenda today. It is an addition of the time-sensitive report on a gas well, and if approved, we will address this under staff reports. It's on your desk before you. I have a mover, Councillor Columbus, seconder Councillor Wells, that the following report be added to the agenda as item 11B, Forestry Farm Road potential gas leak, and that the agenda be approved as amended. Anyone want to discuss that addition that's being proposed to the agenda as 11B, gas well? If not, those in favor of this addition? That's carried. Thank you very much. So we will make that item 11B. Thank you, Andrew. Under staff reports, and if you keep that handy for later, the report is on your desk. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest to declare? And if so, at this time you can declare it, and you will have to give us the nature thereof. Any pecuniary interest? Councillor Height, please.
Yep. Bylaw 38-Z-2018. Mr. Mayor, a property owner there.
Thank you. Noted. Thank you, sir. Nothing further. We'll continue then. I have no consent items on the agenda this evening, but we do have a presentation this afternoon. With us this afternoon are some of the members of the Simcoe Lions Club. Welcome, gentlemen, all gentlemen, welcome to the chambers. It's good to see you, and I am going to ask Gord Malo to come forward, and if he would, where is Gord? I know he's here, I've seen him. Gordon, do you want to come up to the front here, and you can join me at the front if you like, or do you want to speak there? Where would you like him? That would be fine right there. Thank you.
Okay. Your Worship, Councillors, my name is Gord Malo, and it is my privilege to present today on behalf of the Simcoe Lions Club. The Simcoe Lions Club was founded in 1931 by 18 initial members. Since that time, we have grown to approximately 90 members, and as you mentioned, many are here with us today. And along the way, we earned a strong and proud record of making a positive contribution to our community. You likely know individual members of the club, and perhaps recognize them on the stage at our Simcoe Lions annual show, or working the Lions food trailer at the Norfolk County Fair. It is through these efforts and many others that we raise funds to support our community giving. We do this while always keeping in mind the Lions motto, we serve. We serve by giving our time and efforts so that we can give back to our community. You will see our name on backs of many sports team jerseys, our name on music and arts trophies and scholarships, and our name associated with special school programs and resources. At the same time, you probably won't see our name when we provide critical funding to children with specific challenges, hoping to make their journey a little easier. But we do that too. We serve. We also serve by providing key funding to major community projects that help bring our community to life and make Norfolk a great place to live. Past projects include the Simcoe Rec Center, the Talbot Gardens roof, the Simcoe Soccer Park Pavilion, the Simcoe Lions Ballpark, and Simcoe Composite School's new gym. Recently, we have also contributed significantly to many Norfolk General Hospital fundraising campaigns. We are proud of our legacy of giving and believe in looking back at our past efforts and the decisions we made to invest in specific projects that we have chosen wisely. I suppose that shouldn't come as a surprise when investing in any particular project requires the consensus of so many community-minded volunteers. With this in mind, I was asked to speak on behalf of the Lions Club concerning a matter you have been considering for many months, the multi-use recreational facility, also known as the Community Hub. Our club recently asked ourselves if this project is worthy of the significant attention and investment that it will require from Norfolk County. Our answer is a resounding yes. The reasons for this support are many. Here are a few of the highlights. A community hub will allow the residents of Norfolk County to replace rapidly decaying and outdated Simcoe facilities with modern, efficient, and engaging recreational and community assets. A community hub will allow the investment in such facilities to leverage federal and provincial funding so that we get more for our municipal dollars. A community hub will promote and support a healthy lifestyle for Norfolk residents of all ages. A community hub will bring valuable resources to the disposal of the charitable and not-for-profit organizations that help to serve the people of Norfolk. A community hub will have the ability to bring together residents of Norfolk of all ages to experience and engage in new activities and experiences. A community hub will assist in attracting and retaining youth who are critical to our community growth and enrichment. A community hub will assist in attracting and retaining other important demographic and community targets, such as medical professionals. A community hub will assist in attracting investment in post-secondary educational programming and student living assets. A community hub will show the community that Norfolk is willing to invest in the future, rather than putting Band-Aids on assets of the past, so as to serve the needs of the people of Norfolk for generations to come. In short, a community hub represents a generational community opportunity. It was also recognized by the Simcoe Lions Club that in addition to strong community expressions of support, community fundraising will be necessary to bring the community hub to fruition. This is not only because of the significant investment that will be required at a municipal level, but because the prospective funding to be contributed by other levels of government will be contingent on such community support. With this in mind, the Simcoe Lions Club is pleased to express our support for the development of a new, multi-use, integrated, recreational and community facility in Simcoe, and that should the facility come to fruition, the Simcoe Lions Club intends to contribute $50,000 per year for 5 years, for a total of $250,000 towards this project.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Thank you.
Sorry, Gordon, thank you.
Okay. We note that the Simcoe Lions motion to provide this support was unanimously adopted. There wasn't a single dissenting vote. It was voted on favorably by all members present, including those in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, their 70s, and their 80s. We further note that we do this at a time when the exact location of the facility remains undetermined. The specific elements to be included in the facility remain undetermined. And when the recognition a community partner will receive for such a contribution remains undetermined. Nonetheless, the Simcoe Lions Club decided that we could not delay our expression of support, as we believe this project is of such great importance to the future of Norfolk County. The reality is that many of Simcoe's community assets are past their best before date. We know these assets well, from the rec center to Talbot Gardens, as the Simcoe Lions Club was also there to make them a reality. We fundraised and invested in these buildings at that time too. However, they need to be replaced, and that time is now. From this council and the next, We ask for your leadership to do this right, not piecemeal, not as a hedged bet. With strong council leadership, with community support, and with both community and Norfolk County staff expertise, we are confident that if we do this right, we will have a community asset which will make Norfolk County a better place to live today and for generations to come. The Simcoe Lions Club is proud to be a partner in making that happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gord. Well,
Okay.
the sunny day just got a lot brighter. The young lady at the back, is she with the Lions?
No.
No? Okay. Sorry, I thought maybe I missed you. I didn't see you back there and I wanted to apologize. Is there any questions or comments for Mr. Melo? Councillor Black, please.
I don't have any questions, but just to say that Councillor representing Simcoe, I'm overwhelmed by the support and what you said. Just about brought tears to my eyes. Not quite, but just the support that this group that I've seen have given to this community over the years, starting back around 1991 when I was first elected, and had some initial opposition to the Lions ballpark, but you know, after that, this group won me over 100% with the input that they've had, the fundraising, the effect that they've had on this community, the people in it, and all people, from young to old. It is overwhelming, and I really appreciate it. The community appreciates it.
Thank you, Councillor Walls.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say, as a councillor representing Norfolk County, I certainly appreciate the efforts of this group. And it is for Norfolk County that we are looking at building this, not necessarily only for Simcoe. Thank you.
Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Gord, I just want to add my thanks to your club and all of the members. There's a strong representation today to take this initial leap of faith on this project. As you and your club knows, it's my loss, but I will not be here as a member of council and as a member of the Norfolk County community to see this become reality. I hope in a very few years, but I can guarantee you, if I'm still alive, I'll come back for the official opening. So congratulations and thanks for your support.
Thank you. Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. Through you to Lion Melo, you mentioned $50,000 a year over 5 years. Is that what you would say your typical fundraising level is, like say previously over the last 5 years, or?
So in the past, we have contributed to other significant major projects. I mentioned a few, the Talbot Gardens, the SES Gym, et cetera. For those significant projects, this would be in line with those efforts. Those were many years ago. In more recent years, our funding has been significant each year, but more diversified, although we have also given significant dollars to Norfolk General Hospital. So going forward, we're looking for this to be our major commitment for the coming years.
Okay, thank you for that. Now my last question. The multi-use complex hinges on us getting the provincial and federal funding, as well as the municipality has to have its third of the funds. So at council, we've passed a motion that it is contingent that we must get those funds. So if we don't get those funds, then this project is stalled. And I'm wondering how your club feels if we were to build a senior center instead.
We voted on supporting a multi-use integrated recreational community facility, and that is what our club is interested in seeing come to fruition. With regards to your comments, I understand that it's now 27% under the current funding model that would come from the municipality, and within that, of course, you'll need community support to garner the remainder. So we're hoping that what we did here today, and what we will do for many years in this giving, is to show the other levels of government that there is a community support, and there is an initial kickstart to those fundraising campaigns. And we will not only give this money, but strongly encourage other service groups, for-profit companies, and individuals to also support this initiative to show the community support in making this a reality.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments? Thank you. Mr. Mailer, before you're seated, I want to say to you and your members, thank you for being here today. Thank you for, well, you've kind of set the tone here, and you've given this project a tremendous vote of confidence that will obviously be an example for other groups and individuals to come on board. Certainly, none of us in this room know what the outcome will be, but I do know this: we are positioning ourselves very well, despite the big boost we got today from the Lions. Along with that, we are on our way of trying to move forward and get something happening here as soon as we can, and get an application in for that much-needed funding. And certainly, the Lions' leadership today, your timing is excellent in keeping this momentum moving. And your message of make sure we do it right, we got that message loud and clear. I think that is so key. So once again, on behalf of council, to you and your members, thank you kindly for all you do and for your support on this important project. Thank you. We don't need a motion. They certainly know that they can stick around or they can exit stage left, whatever they like. They want to stay for the drainage reports. It's a lot of fun. Okay. We have some public hearings to deal with now. There are a couple of public hearings under the Drainage Act to begin with, and of course later at 5 p.m. today we will address the Planning Act public hearings. I will now officially open the public meeting held under the Drainage Act. I advise those in attendance that we are here this afternoon to consider the engineer's report under the Drainage Act. There will be a subsequent stage, the Drainage Corridor Revision, where assessed costs can be discussed. However, here today, we are to consider aspects of the drainage, of the engineer's design improvements to the drain. If you would go to page 7, please. We have staff report 18-33. This report deals with the Daru Van Hoove drain report for consideration by this council. Lee, I would like you to present your report, please.
Through the mayor to council, before you this evening are actually two drainage reports. Council will note that on both of them, there's been a significant time lag with respect to them. As council will recall, staff have been working very diligently to clear up a bunch of older drains off of our books, and this is the two reports here this evening are both addressing that issue. We're very pleased that they're here before you. This drain was originally started as a petition to extend the drain, and then due to a variety of things, they decided to not proceed with the original petitioners decided that it was going to be too expensive and not proceed. However, through that work, it became apparent that there had been significant changes in the land, in the property ownership, et cetera, as part of the drain, and the drain required maintenance, so we proceeded with that, and that has resulted in the new engineer's report that's before you this evening. And we have had lots of consultation with the affected landowners, and I'd be happy to answer any questions with respect to it.
Okay, thank you very much, Lee. First ask if there are any questions from members of council to staff. Councillor Brunton.
Just very quickly, if I may, Mayor Luke, through Lee. Lee, I see the drain was commenced in 2004. I just wondered, can you give me an idea, the percentage of the drains parties that have changed? Like, is there half? Can you give me an idea how many of the property owners have changed?
Through the mayor to council, the change in ownership of the property wouldn't necessarily affect the report because it really carries with the property. It's the severances and the moving of property lines around so that what used to be attributed to a specific piece of property is no longer actually part of that property, or another piece of property that had smaller acreage now has a much larger acreage. So that's what the change was. It was because the moving of the property lines, not the actual ownership of the property.
Also amalgamating then?
Amalgamating them, or lot line adjustments, or a variety of things through the severance process or through planning applications that resulted in new property lines. So a property that, say, used to have 3 acres is now 15 acres, and another piece of property, was being reduced by that. So they're not the existing report doesn't currently accurately reflect the land ownership in terms of quantity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver?
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, I have 2 questions, Lee, and they are actually on the report itself, on the engineer's report, if I can. So I'm looking at page 20 of our agenda, first of all, and page 5 of the report from K-Smart. About halfway down where section 6.2 talks about drain capacity. And more particularly, I'm looking at the sentence in the second half of that, where it says, the existing laneway access culverts do not satisfy a 5-year storm. The road culverts do not satisfy a 10-year storm without backing water. We understand that. Are these new standards, in your professional opinions and staff as well, sort of reflective of the new standard in Ontario around climate change and the fact that we are getting more extreme weather events, and we are going to have to design accordingly, that these higher minimum openings are now the standard?
To the mayor, to council, that is correct.
Okay.
Again, with climate change, we're not seeing the same type of storms that we used to see, and we need to protect the infrastructure as a result.
So are we being proactive at all, or is this, if you like, a minimum professional standard set for everybody at this point?
Through the mayor to council, I would call this good engineering practices.
Okay.
And it's been in place for any new subdivisions that are being developed. Our storm sewers are all being designed to these standards.
Okay.
But these are obviously older ditches, older drainage systems, and so we're just bringing up the sections to meet existing needs.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And my second question, Mr. Mayor, is on page 23 of the agenda, page 8 of the K-Smart report, and this relates to the online ponds that are referenced. Those are privately owned ponds, I guess one would say. I see nodding, and that's correct. And I also see reference to the landowner or landowners may install a control structure at the outlet at their cost. My question relates to what we have done with some of our drains before, where it is what we call a bottom draw water control structure, which obviously is the right thing to do in terms of allowing cooler water to be outletted from the reservoir, from the pond. Do we have that kind of special funding? I know the old wetland drain program is gone now, I think. Okay, maybe not. So that's my question. Could staff comment on that, and are we in a position to assist with costs if a water control structure incorporated the bottom draw capability that I was talking about?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This project in itself did originally have a wetland component designed on it. In light of getting the project done, that part's been moved off to the next phase of this watershed. And I do believe there was some funding set aside for this watershed itself. We do have, the funding's kind of slowed down a bit, but we do have some funding remaining. So.
Okay, and thanks for that, Bill. But I guess related question then, would we have the ability, given the fact that this work will be done within the next few months, presumably, including possibly these control structures on these ponds, do we have the ability to utilize that funding, should council deem it the right thing to do, to make these ponds more suitable?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. On this project, there was a lot of discussions with the previous owners. I believe some landowners changed, so the interest in doing such a project had kind of gone to the wayside for a little bit. If the landowners were interested, in doing something on their property, then I'm sure I could find M&R staff that would be interested in jumping on a project like that.
Ask Mr. Mayor, in light of this good discussion, maybe our staff and the engineer at least pursue it and see if there is possibly some interest on the part of the landowners with these ponds. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'll get to you in a moment. Is there any other questions from members of council to staff on the report at this time? Okay, we'll move along here. Now, I'm going to ask first if there's anyone in attendance that wishes to speak, first of all, to the design or to the engineer's report. Yes, sir. You may come forward and give us your name, please. And Councillor Height, thank you for turning the microphone on.
I would like to thank you for letting us comment on this. I understand. My name is Ed McClure. We operate under the name of Joseph McClure and Sons Farms Limited. We have property that the drains go through. I've lived on these properties my whole life. I understand the engineer's report, and they have to look at all of the angles. But we farm this land forever and a day. These ditches, if you go through these ditches, 8 out of 10 months they have no water in them. They were just cleaned out a matter of few years ago. We have, like I say, the one farm is a 100-acre property. Our sand, we want to keep the water on. We don't want to get it off. And they're talking about, 2 and 5 year storms and all this. I'm 62 years old. I've done stuff on these farms since I'm 10. We have never been able to not work our land. To me, it's not a sensible way to approach this. If you walk this drain, I would like to know, has anyone walked this drain in July, August, September, October, to see if there's any holding capacity, if the water is running through? There isn't. I go through them every day. And to me, it's not a necessity. The last time they had the meeting on this, I wasn't available for at least a month. I didn't get this. The first report, I didn't. Well, I don't really even remember how many years ago it was, but I missed that, and it's my fault. I should have got in contact with someone. But if you read in here of the property owners, there is one gentleman that says it should be corrected. If you can look at aerial views of the farm in question in the 70s, the ditch that was running through the center of his farm was filled and it was put off to the west. The tiles that drained the farm were changed. His issue, I can understand it. I know the farm. It's always been a lower farm. But to impact this on all the other farm owners, because if you read the report, there's very few people who are in agreement with doing this. What has been done over the last few years while they just go through and clean it out, it's quite suitable to us. I know we have to maintain our property, but I think this is too extreme. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in attendance this afternoon who wishes to speak to the design or the engineer's report of this drain? Is there anyone in attendance this afternoon that wishes to add or remove their names from the petition? Anything further from this council? Councillor Columbus, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at page 26 of our agenda package, and it's that middle chart there with respect to the roll number owners and then damages, and then the width. It has, that first one there, it says 10 meters. I need an explanation on what that 10 meters means, what that 25 by 25 means, and if, Bill, if you could explain to us what that's about. And I know this isn't about dollars, but the 10 meters is $1,800 damages, and 25 by 25 is 200. So if you could just share with us how it comes to that discrepancy.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The table of allowances, the engineer has established a general working width for reconstructing some of the culverts at those various, the 5 or 4 property owners. Some of them is just based on, the first one, as you'll notice, is a general width of 10 meters along the length of the drain, where the other ones are more of a rectangular area around where we would be working and disturbing the property. It's just an allowance for using the land, just damages to the property while we do the construction.
Okay, so I could get the clarification now. It's along the whole length of the drain that affects that particular property. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, definitely the first property, Jensen, on the top of the list there is a 10-meter length along the parallel to the drain for access, and then the remaining properties appear to be a working area around. We probably have an existing allowance or ability to access the property, so this is just a little bit extra around where we would be just ripping the culverts out. It's more of a square area.
Councillor Geisens, please.
Thank you. I'm looking on page 11, and I guess what I'm looking at, it flows north to Charlottesville Road 19, all the way from Dowell Road east as well, and south of that, I guess, would be, or north. Where am I here? But anyway, where does it empty into, that drain?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This drain originally was a branch of the Langtree drain, which will be coming hopefully soon down through the engineer's reports, which ends up in Young's Creek, as I'm getting prompted here. So, thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To staff, in light of the gentleman's concern, Mr. McClure, relative to support from landowners, do we currently have any private landowners who were either petitioners initially or have expressed support for the work that is proposed to be done in this report? Or is it strictly us as the road authority that are pushing this project forward?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The premise of this report is rebuilding the existing drain or enhancing the existing drain. The petition was to extend the drain up to the corner of Turkey Point Road.
Right.
That petition, based on cost, the work related to that was not feasible, so this is just enhancing the existing drain. As you'll note in the cost, it's about 90% of the project or more is simply addressing culverts that are undersized or failing on the drain.
Right. And, okay, I understand that, and thank you for that. He also mentioned, at least it was his recollection, that we did a clean out of the drain, as he put it, I think a few years ago. When was the last time that the drain was actually cleaned out? Now, I'm not talking about upgrading the culverts at this point. I just mean the ditching to clean debris, et cetera.
Through the mayor to council, the drains are typically cleaned out on a 5-year program, so it's probably about 2.5 years ago that the work was undertaken out there.
Okay.
For cleaning.
For clean out. And
Yes.
again, we're not proposing, are we proposing to do a clean out here, or is it strictly the culvert upgrading at this stage?
The majority of the project will be simply addressing the culverts, either undersized or failing and rotting culverts.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. Through you to Public Works. I'm on page 21 of our agenda. About the middle of the way, it says that on January 23rd, a letter was sent to the 4 residential properties at the top of the drain outlining the 3 options. And it says that several responses were received back, with option 3 being the preferred alternative. Option 3 is to abandon the petition. How many is several? out of the 4.
Through the mayor to council, there was 3 out of 4 requested the abandonment of the new part of the drain at the top end.
Okay, so this report that's before us includes the new part, or was that abandoned?
That was abandoned per the
It was.
property owner's requests.
Okay, so this was just for the maintenance?
This is for the existing drain, addressing all of the property issues with respect to the different sizes of the properties now, as well as the failing culverts, et cetera.
Okay. Now, just for clarification, the gentleman who was up here before, he spoke about having the sand ground and didn't want the water taken away, and I live on a sandy farm, and I definitely wouldn't want the same thing. Is that looked at through the engineering side of it, or is there water retention on that property?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The engineer, his base is hydrology, so he has looked at this entire watershed. We played with several factors of retaining water on the landscape. Obviously, if the interest wasn't with the landowner at the time, or if it would hold water up on the adjacent property, that factored in whether we could do it under this report. It's always an option to do further retention if the landowner interest is in there in this project, but not in this one. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from council? I will need a motion to close this public meeting. Height and Columbus have moved and seconded that we close this public meeting of the drainage. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now I'll ask council for how they wish to proceed. And as you know, on page 7, there is a proposed recommendation for us to consider. Councillor Brunton.
I'll recommend go ahead with the recommendations in the report.
I have a mover, seconder. Councillor Oliver. Brunton has moved. Oliver has seconded. That this staff report, PW 1833, the Daru Van Hove Drain Report for consideration by council, be received as information, and that a bylaw be given 2 readings, provisionally adopting the Daru Van Hove Drain 2018 report dated March the 29, 2018. It's been prepared by K Smart Associates Limited, and further that staff be directed to send a copy of the provisional bylaw and notice of quarter revision to all required property owners. And further that the first sitting of the Court of Revision be scheduled in accordance with the provisions of the Drainage Act. And further that upon completion of the Drainage Act appeals, the Drainage Superintendent act on behalf of council to continue with the requirements of the Drainage Act and make all arrangements for completion of the drainage works. Discussion on this motion. Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we all appreciated the gentleman's comments relative to this work, in his opinion, possibly negatively impacting his land, and that they don't have an issue with standing water typically through much of the year. But as I think staff pointed out, partly in response to my question, this is primarily work that is going to upgrade the culverts, either the private lane culverts or the municipal road culverts. And it's a concern during extreme weather events. And I think this is going to become, unfortunately, our new reality in terms of more extreme rainfall, particularly concerned to drain events. And I think that's something we're just going to have to be faced with in the future. We talked about it last week almost in the context of adapting to climate change. And one of those adaptations will be ensuring that our stormwater system can handle those events. So I appreciate his comments, I'm sympathetic to them, but I do feel we should go ahead and authorize this work to be done. And I would remind council that we are paying approximately 50% of the cost, 169,000. Our share is almost 81,000 of the 169. So I think it is work that has to be done, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anything further? You've heard the recommendation. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. I'm now on page 45, which is our second report. This is PW 18-31. This concerns the Prescott Drain, Branch A, report for consideration by this council. Prior to beginning the next report, I would just mention that the proposed works is not related to a petition as it is advanced through Section 78 of the Drainage Act. Lee, we're on page 45, if you would give us your report, please.
Through the mayor to council, before you is the drainage report. This has been, it is a Section 78 drainage report, so it has come at the request of a landowner to upgrade a section of the drain. It originally came forward many, many years ago, and as they were starting to proceed with moving forward with the project, the funding opportunities from the province had been eliminated, so we did not proceed with the work. The funding opportunities are now back in place, and the landowner has asked us to proceed with this. The majority of this work does affect a single landowner as well as the Ministry of Transportation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Lee, are there any questions to staff from council members? I hear none at this time. I'll move along then. I will ask if there's anyone in attendance this afternoon that wishes to speak to the design or the engineer's report. Anyone in attendance wishes to speak on design or the engineer's report? There is no petition, so no names to be added or taken away. Is there anything further from council on this report? Councillor Brunton, please.
Yeah, just, and it's kind of a general question, really, if I may, Mayor Luke. Lee mentioned that these things have been dragging on for years, but just kind of curious as to what happened. And I read in here where, you know, well, it goes back to 69 with John Dodd, but 2002 is when we engaged this company. It's a long time ago. And I'm just kind of curious as to, and I realize in there it says Mr. Allen left the firm, I guess. I believe that's what the comment was. But what dragged it out, I guess, for such a long, long time? Gotta get a, and I'm sure you got other drains that are the same boat, but what is the problem?
Through the mayor to council, I don't think that there's a specific problem. I think that there's a whole variety of factors. You know, originally, I think we've spoken many times at this council in regards to the fact that there is a significant lack of drainage engineers available in our area of the province of Ontario, and most of them, as a result of that, are extremely overworked. The project was going through the process when the province changed the funding. And so then at the request of the landowner, we then stopped work on the project because it is a Section 78, so it's only being done at the request of the property owner. We stopped doing that for a while. Changing government, new grant funding, et cetera, came back in. It started back up again as a result of that. So it's a series of, it's a project that's initiated by the landowners. The availability of funding clearly affected the landowner's desire to move forward or not to move forward with the project. Shortage, we've been working very, very diligently with our engineers to get some of these matters cleared off for the ones that have been carrying on for such a long period of time.
Thanks for that explanation, Lee. I just, if I may, one other question. Can you give me an idea how many other drains we have in this position? Like I guess I'm more interested in new drains, not so much clean-outs, but what about new drains? Do we have a significant number of them that are being delayed?
Through the mayor to council, we've gotten that number down to between 40 and 50 drainage reports that are currently outstanding. That's significantly better than when I started here approximately 3 years ago. Staff have been doing a great job at whittling this number down. Off the top of our head, I'm not sure that we can say exactly how many are petitions for new drains, and a variety of them are in the process. They're not necessarily all with the engineer. They're all throughout a whole bunch of different steps throughout that process, and I think you're very well aware of where some of the drains stand, specifically the Dingle Creek, et cetera.
Okay, one other question is how many of the 30 to 50 you mentioned are petitioned by our road authority? Any percentage?
Through the mayor to council, maybe 5 of them.
That's it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from this council? May I have a motion, please, to close the public meeting? Wells has moved, Sonnenberg has seconded. We close this public meeting. Those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Page 77 is the staff, page 45, my apologies. Page 45 is the staff recommendation. What's your wishes? Councillor Sonnenberg.
I will move the recommendation in the report.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Height. Sonnenberg has moved. Height has seconded that staff report, PW 1831, Prescott Drain, Branch A report considered by council be received as information, and that a bylaw be given 2 readings provisionally adopting the Prescott Drain Branch 8A Ryerson report dated March 14th, 2018, prepared by Neil Morris, professional engineers. Further, that staff be directed to send a copy of the provisional bylaw and notice of quarter revision to all required property owners, and further, that the first sitting of the quarter revision be scheduled in accordance with the provisions of the Drainage Act, and further, that upon completion of the Drainage Act appeals, the Drainage Superintendent act on behalf of council to continue with the requirements of the Drainage Act and make all arrangements for completion of the drainage works. Discussion. Hearing none. Those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Bill, for your assistance here. Thank you, sir. We'll now go to the approval of minutes, and we have on page 77 the May 22nd, 2018 council minutes. Is there anything in there you should bring to our attention? Errors? Hearing none, I will declare those approved as printed for May 22nd, council. Let's move on to section 8, reports of committees. I'm on page 91. Been moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Wells, that the open and closed minutes of the council and committee meeting of June the 5th, 2018 be approved as presented. Any discussion? June 5th, CIC. Those in favor of the minutes? Those opposed? Carried. Thank you. We have 2 telecommunications advisory committee minutes. We'll deal with May 7th. March 5th and May 7th. Okay, I got it. I just one step ahead of myself. Okay, I'm on page 103, moved by Councillor Sonnenberg, seconded by Councillor Brunton, that the minutes of the Telecommunication Advisory Committee meeting of March 5th, 2018 be received as information. Any questions on these 4 pages of minutes? Hearing none, those in favor? It's carried. Next, we're on page 107, moved by Brunton, seconded by Sonnenberg, that the minutes of the Telecommunication Advisory Committee meeting of May the 7th, 2018 be received as information. Any discussion on these pages? Councillor Oliver, Columbus, and Wells, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is about page 108, and it's the motion where the TAC committee works to promote and provide Wi-Fi across all facilities. And I don't expect Councillor Height to necessarily know this, but I remember a number of years ago, we put Wi-Fi in our arenas and in our community centers, and I think in our libraries under that project where we receive funding from the provincial government, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. And I'm not aware that that ever sort of finished in terms of, of the service being provided by the internet provider. So I guess maybe to Councillor Height, Noel, do you recall when you had this discussion, are those facilities currently not served by Wi-Fi, or was the committee just trying to reaffirm which ones have it already and which ones don't, and to make sure everyone has it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor
Height?
Luke. If you go to the top of the page, you'll see that it says here, Council services in conjunction with the GIS Department to provide a list of all county facilities that do not have Wi-Fi connectivity. That was deferred. So we have a fairly good idea of what does and doesn't. We just thought we would group it as a catch-all more than anything else specifically.
Thank you. Councillor Columbus?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whoever can answer this, when do we expect that we'll see a map with all the fiber within the county that's been laid out, where the fiber goes? And I know there's work being done on a map, so just wonder when either our staff or councillors will be able to have access to that.
Okay. Mr. CAO?
I continue to take the position that that is an unlikely event to ever occur. It remains the case that a small portion of our staff, i.e. basically our head of IT and presumably his boss, will be shown some sensitive documents that we will be embargoing ourselves, so the rest of the corporation can't see it, let alone. They won't ever be for public dissemination. That was part of the agreement when we joined SWIFT. So I do not see a universe, maybe decades down the road, when it's not viewed as a competitive, but even the gas companies kind of view their own lines as somewhat competitive data, and aren't always forthcoming with that either. To reiterate, I don't think we're going to ever be able to provide you with that information, or just very limited, never in its totality. Some companies may be prepared to share, but I don't think we'll ever produce a map, and I don't expect I'll ever see it myself, to be fully blunt. I just want to be clear about that.
Thank you.
Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I wonder if somebody might comment on this on page 110, under other business, water tower in Port Dover. Discussion took place on the water tower in Port Dover, and Bell being the sole provider that has satellite there. Bell has refused to let Rogers use the tower, but committee wonders if in the contract that no other service provider may use it. Wonder if we might have some comments to that, or is that private?
CAO?
It's going to be that interesting anyway. There
you go.
What I'll do is undertake to get an answer to you. It is likely that that's a publicly available document, and I have dealt with a very similar situation in previous employment with another municipality. But I refer the matter to the county solicitor, review the contract. It is distinctly possible. The clerk is subtly telling me I should speak less. I mean, generally he's right. He and I may speak about this afterwards, but for now, I'll take that. I lost my train of thought. Right, the deal. There's a distinct possibility that there's a clause in the contract which will be the form of a lease. We are likely receiving payment to allow a third party to utilize a water tower. At least I sure hope that's how it's set up. And assuming so, it may well be exclusive rights. So that may or may not be correct, but I will undertake and I can't give you the answer straight up now. I'd have to spend some time in the document, and we'll have the county solicitor do that, and in turn, we'll get an answer for you.
Sounds good to me, Mr. Mayor.
Not to get myself in further trouble, because we'll obviously have to go through the process with the county solicitor looking at that, but there was a preliminary answer provided at the last meeting to the committee, and that was that as long as the new equipment doesn't interfere with the existing equipment there, then more service providers can be up there. So it's just they have to be on a different frequency, and then we can allow more service providers on the bell tower.
Councillor Height? Oh, sorry, Councillor Wells, my apologies.
And do we have other providers that wish to lend their services, as far as we know, or use that tower, if they did get permission?
I wasn't in attendance at the last Technology Advisory Committee meeting, so I can't say how that was discussed. But the reason I have experience with this in another municipality is that there was one good spot and multiple telecommunications companies wanted to establish competitive services for the same thing in the same location because it made sense for everyone. And it would not surprise me if such were the case here as well.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Councillor Height, and then Councillor Broughton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. The list of Wi-Fi recommendations, I'm wondering, do we need a motion to move that into the budget session?